North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. Welcome to the broadcast today. We are waiting for the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, to take to the podium at the Justice Department to explain the raid on Mar-a-Lago. He has finally come to the microphones some 3.5 days after the presidential compound in Mar-a-Lago was raided by FBI agents. There are all kinds of very interesting stories around this, like, for example, that Merrick Garland didn't sign off on that raid. He didn't sign off on the raid. Are you kidding? Okay, so that strains credibility, and we'll see if there's any more strains of credibility after this statement. From what we understand, he's going to speak for about 5 minutes. He is not going to take questions from reporters. That harbinges bad news for the DOJ. What he's going to do is he's going to come out there and say, this is what we were doing. We were pursuing this particular case. We got a magistrate to sign it, Bruce Reinhart, and we went through it, and we collected various documents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He might invoke the Presidential Records Act, but if so, that is the ultimate ticky-tack law enforcement overreach in the entire world. Now, there could be something else. We don't know. We do not know. But hopefully we will get just a little bit more illumination following this statement that was supposed to happen at 1:30 this afternoon. And they have been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting until now. Obviously, this is something that Americans have been very much focused on. At least half of the United States outraged by this. And this is something that the Attorney General should have done days ago. He should have had a statement ready the day afterwards. But apparently the story goes that he was not involved in the decision-making process. Well, who was? Was that Christopher Wray? Did Christopher Wray order this raid? Is that really what happened? And if Christopher Wray ordered this raid, then how does that explain his testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee? There are a lot of real problems here. I am relatively sure that Merrick Garland, known for being buttoned up, very careful, cautious, step-by-step kind of guy, I'm pretty sure that he didn't want to say anything to anybody about this, and I'm pretty sure that what he's going to do is try to keep a stiff upper lip and say, we did this because we had reason to believe that, okay, maybe documents were going to be destroyed. Okay, well, who's responsible for that? Obviously, an informant. Who is the informant? My bet is that somebody on the Secret Service staff, on the Secret Service detail of President Donald Trump. That is my guess. And I tweeted as much yesterday. And if indeed that is the case, then the deep state lives and reigns in these United States of America. Certainly not for any president, just for this president. Okay, so someone is coming out and there's going to be they're making some kind of a statement here. I don't know what that was. Hang on just a couple of minutes and we'll see. We'll see what is next. Apparently, what we're doing is we're currently watching Fox News coverage of this, and that's the audio that we intend to take. And now we're waiting to see how much longer. It must have been just a statement of a delay. And so what we're trying to figure out at this particular moment is that if there was an informant inside, who would it be? Well, it can only be 6 or 8 people. And there are other things involved. Yvonne rightly brings up the FBI wanted the cameras turned off in Mar-a-Lago during the raid. I understand they were not, and now the FBI is demanding the tapes. I don't think they get the tapes. I don't believe they belong to the FBI. But if I was President Trump or any of his operatives, I'd be making a copy right this minute. That's what I'd be doing. I would be making a copy of this right this minute. Expect a federal subpoena if that is indeed the case, as Yvonne is reporting right now. If that is indeed the case, then expect a subpoena anytime. Expect a subpoena anytime. You just heard that what we have here is this is the Washington Examiner telling me that AG Merrick Garland is going to make a statement on the FBI Trump raid after a delay. We don't know how long that's going to be. Let me see if they have any more information on that. Let's see. Attorney General Merrick Garland is slated to deliver a statement Thursday afternoon, shortly after the Thursday afternoon. Okay. Thank you very much for that ad. I appreciate that. Garland's remarks come 3 days after the FBI raid of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home on Monday. Details about Garland's statement were not revealed before he has taken the podium. I don't know why they are reporting him as taking the podium, because he has not. Here he comes now. Let's join Fox News coverage. Merrick Garland.
The other side, here's the Attorney General, Merrick Garland.
Let's listen. Since I became Attorney General, I have made clear that the Department of Justice will speak through its court filings and its work. Just now, the Justice Department has filed a motion in the Southern District of Florida to unseal a search warrant and property receipt relating to a court-approved search that the FBI conducted earlier this week. That search was of premises located in Florida belonging to the former president. The department did not make any public statements on the day of the search. The former president publicly confirmed the search that evening, as is his right. Copies of both the warrant and the FBI property receipt were provided on the day of the search to the former president's counsel, who was on site during the search. The search warrant was authorized by a federal court upon the required finding of probable cause. The property receipt is a document that federal law requires law enforcement agents to leave with the property owner. The department filed the motion to make public the warrant and receipt in light of the former president's public confirmation of the search, the surrounding circumstances, and the substantial public interest in this matter. Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing. All Americans are entitled to the even-handed application of the law, to due process of the law, and to the presumption of innocence. Much of our work is by necessity conducted out of the public eye. We do that to protect the constitutional rights of all Americans and to protect the integrity of our investigations. Federal law, long-standing department rules, and our ethical obligations prevent me from providing further details as to the basis of the search at this time. There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken. Third, let me address recent unfounded attacks on the professionalism of the FBI and Justice Department agents and prosecutors. I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked. The men and women of the FBI and the Justice Department are dedicated, patriotic public servants. Every day, they protect the American people from violent crime, terrorism, and other threats to their safety while safeguarding our civil rights. They do so at great personal sacrifice and risk to themselves. I am honored to work alongside them. This is all I can say right now. More information will be made available in the appropriate way and at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney General, the former president said
FBI agents. Thank you all for your questions. But as I said, this is all I can say at this time.
And so we have the Attorney General of the United States, a perfunctory statement saying what he had to say. He did bring up a couple of things. One, he settled who personally approved the warrant. So he said he did. And then he talked about how Americans could expect equal handling of law, equal protection under the law, equal enforcement of the law. And he said that under these circumstances regarding the warrant, that it would be at the most narrow possible scope. That is, of course, at odds with the fact that the FBI wandered around in Melania's closet and everywhere else in Mar-a-Lago for some 9 hours. And so that is what the Attorney General's had to say. He did not address any of the content. He is talking like so many others that he cannot comment on current cases, et cetera, et cetera. And that looks like a little bit of a dodge to me. Now, that's just my opinion. That's not the news reporting here. But the DOJ has filed a motion to unseal the warrant. We will be seeing that soon. We'll be seeing the property listing, the inventory of items taken from Mar-a-Lago. What will that tell us? Well, we can only speculate at this time. But once again, if and when that warrant is made public, you will hear about it here on the Wells Report. We will be more than happy to do that for you. And so we were talking right before the Attorney General came out that there are current rumors. Now, please understand about rumors. We just heard that the rumor is that Merrick Garland did not approve the search warrant. We now know that he did approve the search warrant. So what we may have here is we may have a whole lot of nothing. CNN is reporting it. He says, CNN says, the FBI search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence on Monday was prompted by a tip to investigators about the possibility of additional classified documents at the Palm Beach Club, according to a Wall Street Journal report. CNN previously reported investigators from the FBI and DOJ met with Trump attorneys at Mar-a-Lago in June, seeking more information about classified material, and indeed took possession of some. This was in June, July, and then halfway through August. What happened in that month and a half? Well, a tipster apparently said that President Trump was planning on destroying the records. That could be the only reason why there was such an immediate push to get into Mar-a-Lago and stop this, whatever they thought was happening. Once again, we'll learn more when we see the affidavit, et cetera, et cetera. So there you have it. What are your thoughts? What did you just hear Merrick Garland say? What do you think of it? Give me a buzz, 817-379-2172. That's 817-379-2172. You can join us. You can join us right here on the chat at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. What did you just hear Merrick Garland say? We also want to thank Fox News for allowing us to drop into their coverage. We appreciate that very sincerely. You're listening to the Wells Report. I've got more coming up in just a couple of minutes as we get you through this, the 11th day of August, year of our Lord 2022. Looks like it's going to be mighty exciting these days. What do you think about Merrick Garland's 3 days late statement? Telephone number 817-379-2172. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. At last, Attorney General Merrick Garland came out and discussed the outrageous search of Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's private residence, on Monday. He said that he had details about the actual search warrant that we already knew. He said that he personally signed off on it. He discussed that Americans can expect equal justice from the law. And he said that under any of these circumstances, there's always a very narrow scope regarding what a search warrant is. Well, the problem with that is that it's not a narrow scope when 30 guys with guns show up and spend 9 hours in your house after asking everyone to leave and asking people to turn off security cameras. What's fascinating to me is that the staff refused to turn off the security cameras. Eric Trump is out with some information, courtesy of Newsweek, talking about what he saw on those videos. We'll get to that coming up in just a couple of moments. So I just ask, what did you see? What did you hear from Merrick Garland? So the first poignant statement was horse hockey. That's what someone heard. Someone else said he's a dirtbag. By the way, when I say this, it's not because I'm trying to cut out people from having their moment on the Wells Report. I just, what I'm trying to do is protect privacy. These people have an opportunity to speak. If you want to know who they are, you can certainly go to the chat room on Facebook or YouTube and see it. Let's see. Ann brings up the fact that Ray said that yesterday that Mara did not know. Well, that wasn't true. Disproved today. Very interesting. So Jesse says a bunch of deflecting and avoiding answering questions. There were no questions answered. There were questions asked, but Attorney General Garland simply turned around, held up his hand, and said, this is all I can say about this, and he walked off. There are problems with this. There are huge problems with this. And I doubt that there could be any other reality than Merrick Garland is getting his butt firmly kicked over this. That's what I saw today. You ask me, I ask you what you saw. That's what I saw. I saw a guy trying to contain and do damage control. That's what I saw today. Let's see what else is going on. Someone says they know they effed up and now the Dodge is on, invent a distraction. Okay, let's see. This is interesting. Magistrate Reinhardt, Bruce Reinhardt is that guy. We have a small piece on just exactly who he is. That is courtesy of, hold on just a couple of seconds here. We have a little bit more. Okay, that's courtesy of USA Today. We'll have that for you a little bit later on. But someone says that he is getting trashed and protested, and guess what? He immediately got bodyguards and residential protection. Oh, really? We also have some other things coming up. There's some things I have to reiterate regarding what kind of a reaction we should put on this particular group of facts that we've been running across for the last 3 days. Extremism is clearly not one of them. Sadly, there were moments of that today. I have some questions about that. We'll get to that a little bit later on as we continue. A breaking news story. Attorney General Merrick Garland finally steps out and says something. The FBI hasn't said anything. They've been evasive. The White House hasn't said anything. They've been evasive. I suspect that the Attorney General would have been evasive if it wasn't for the fact that this very large, ugly rock landed with a thud on his desk, and he had very little else to do. Expect the hue and cry to be heard for miles and miles and miles based on this statement. That's my professional news prediction. We'll be back with more of this broadcast in just a couple of moments. You're watching the Wells Report. Back in a moment. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us today. Breaking news, the Attorney General of the United States, after 3 days, has finally addressed the nation and said pretty much nothing. There were two pieces of information that came out of there that I clued in on. One, the Attorney General did a perfunctory run-through of the search warrant process. He has made a motion to federal magistrate Bruce Reinhart to release the search warrant itself and the inventory list given to Trump officials at Mar-a-Lago following the FBI raid on Monday. And yeah, we're calling it a raid because that's exactly what it is. Fox News is now reporting that Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, has sent a letter to FBI employees, to everyone. And I haven't gotten that letter yet, but Fox News has put it out, or at least reported partially on it. And in that, it looks as though he is saying that he is concerned about the security of his employees. Now, we don't know when this letter came out, but it could have come out days ago. And once again, we'll know more when Fox News puts it up on their website or we get other information. But what he said was, it's been a tough week for the FBI. It has been a tough week for the FBI. He admonished that his employees should follow the rules, step by step by step. That looks like a little butt covering to me. That's just my opinion. But the interesting thing about it is that he's talking about security, and there was a shooting today outside FBI headquarters in Cincinnati. We are going to be covering that coming up in just a couple of moments, but this is a breaking news event. And so what we're doing is we're giving it to you as it unfolds. In the meantime, the FBI security services are working as hard as they possibly can to make sure that their facilities are safe. What does that mean? Again, just my opinion. It means the FBI is battening down the hatches. I would suspect that in that letter there is some also admonishment that FBI agents stay away from the press and be silent about this entire thing, which again is something that we talked about earlier this week. This is either they have something serious on President Trump, which is beginning to look less and less likely every second, and two, it looks like somebody made a gigantic mistake, and the FBI is battening down the hatches and telling his employees to mind their business, do their jobs. And what's curious about this is he reiterates that they must follow established FBI procedures. The obvious assumption, and remember what assumptions are. They make an ass out of you and me. The obvious assumption is that there may be something wrong with this entire affair. Now, that's something we reported earlier this week. It seems as though there's a lot of veracity to that particular ideology, that maybe they screwed up here. And maybe they're really seriously looking at this as a big mistake. And I'm beginning to believe more and more, again, just my opinion, that this is very serious damage control. Apparently, all of this came up through the auspices of an inside informant. CNN is reporting that investigators acted on a tip from an inside source, and that is something that is currently being hashed out. And once again, we don't know a whole lot about it. I suspect that while we will get the search warrant itself and the inventory of items taken from Mar-a-Lago, we will not see the original affidavit, or if we do see the affidavit, it will not be attributed to any individual, or perhaps it will be attributed to an individual whose identity will be kept secret. Interesting. For months, investigators have been looking, this is CNN, for months, investigators have been looking into seeing how President Trump handled material taken with him when he left the White House after the National Archives and Record Administration referred the case to the Justice Department earlier this year. Once again, it's beginning to look very deep state-ish to me. Again, an opinion. The Monday search followed a belief from authorities that former president or his team had not returned all the documents and other materials that were property of the government, according to a person familiar with the matter. There had been a suspicion that Trump representatives were not being completely truthful and investigators, according to other persons familiar with the matter. That's an assumption. And once again, you cannot act with 30 FBI agents, flashing lights, weapons, a Coast Guard Zodiac boat, out covering the water for crying out loud, with a 240 Bravo machine gun, mounted and safe, by the way, it was pointed up to the sky, mounted and safe on this Zodiac boat. You just don't do that. I find it also interesting that the Attorney General talked about a limited scope. If this is a limited scope, what is a non-limited scope? How do you spend 9.5 hours inside Mar-a-Lago after asking for everyone to leave and to turn off the security cameras? Eric Trump is out with a report on just exactly what those security cameras saw. But let's get back to this. Let's get back to this informant. Former acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney surmised that a source very close to former President Donald Trump informed authorities where classified material was stashed in Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Once again, if there is direct information as to where that material was stashed, one, it will show up in the search warrant what material they were looking for, where they were going to look, and once again, it does not cover the scope of what was an FBI raid into Mar-a-Lago. So there was some sort of classified information stashed in the Mar-a-Lago resort. Mulvaney speculated there was likely between 6 and 8 people close enough to President Trump to possess the type of information needed to help the FBI execute a search warrant. For my money, again, this is an assumption on my part. This is simply speculation. That's a Secret Service agent. A Secret Service agent on that detail informed the FBI. That's based on some knowledge that came from open source reporting where the person that was theoretically the informant had very close information, not just to what kind of materials Donald Trump had at Mar-a-Lago, but also had knowledge of the FBI procedures as to what was going on or what would happen if a search warrant was indeed executed, which it was. So it can only be a Secret Service agent, which means when we start talking about deep state operatives, if this is true, when we start talking about deep state operatives, now the Secret Service has to be included in the same breath as the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the FBI. Now we have to add the Secret Service as a part of this deep state conspiracy to remove Donald Trump from office when he was the president. And now, as his post-presidency continues to unfold, this gets uglier every second. This gets uglier every second. I suspect that the Attorney General signed off on this, or at least said he signed off on this, and there's disputed information about that. Christopher Wray himself said he did not believe that the AG, Merrick Garland, signed off on that search. Okay, is this Merrick Garland taking full responsibility for it? If that's the case, it gets back to butt covering, because now the Attorney General is saying, it's on me. It's on me. I didn't like his demeanor. He looked very, very guarded. He looked somewhat shaken to me. He did not want to be out there. He did not look comfortable there. If indeed, and you've seen this before, when federal officials, especially federal law enforcement officials, have everything wired tight, they are confident. That is not what we saw today with Merrick Garland. Now, I don't know the guy. I don't have any idea what goes on in his head. I've never met him. I don't know anything about him. All I can say is that was a guy who did not want to be where he was. That's reinforced by the fact that he would not take any questions. Earlier today, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy said that press conference should go as long as people had questions. There was no press conference. Again, they don't want to deal with this. Yes, the possibility that they have something extremely big on President Trump is still out there. But if they had something big on President Trump, it wouldn't have taken 3 days for them to have some sort of a statement that said nothing for all intents and purposes. It wouldn't be something that they would do after 3 days of having as soon as they had that information, they would confirm that they had the information that proved something big on President Trump, and they would have released it. Just like that. But they don't have it. They don't have it. It's beginning to look like an epic overreach, an epic error of judgment at the highest levels of the Department of Justice, the FBI, based again on what is an anonymous informant. So once again, Mick Mulvaney says, there are only 6 to 8 people. He said this, quote, "This could be someone who was handling things on day-to-day basis, who knew where the documents were. So it would be somebody very close to the president. My guess is there are probably 6 to 8 people that had that kind of information. I didn't know there was a safe at Mar-a-Lago. I was the chief of staff for 15 months. He noted that he is less connected to Trump world now than he had been during his days in the Trump administration, which makes sense. A confidential source tipped off authorities, this from CNN, a confidential source tipped off authorities that additional classified material was still stored at Mar-a-Lago, which served as the impetus for the raid, according to 2 officials telling Newsweek. Quote, "It would be valid on getting a search warrant, or at least part of getting a search warrant. The other thing the FBI had to establish, however, was that those documents were in imminent risk of being destroyed or removed from that location," said Mulvaney. On Monday, the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago during a search pertaining to the Justice Department's inquiry of how President Trump handled classified material. Once again, the president has ownership of these papers. He decides what's classified and what is not. It is a give and take between the National Archives and the President of the United States to be able to get these materials. It has happened before. Obama, Bush, Clinton, everybody. It has happened before. It will happen again. It is the give and take between former presidents and the National Archives. Earlier this year, the National Archives and Records Administration retrieved about 15 boxes worth of material from Trump's resort and later unearthed classified materials in that stash, according to the agent's chief. That's a claim he made. The agency referred the matter to the Justice Department, which opened an investigation about his handling of classified material. Now, let's get back to the actual search itself. This being reported by Newsweek. Eric Trump said the security cameras at Mar-a-Lago caught the FBI agents behaving improperly during the Monday raid, alleging investigators were accessing parts of former President Donald Trump's Florida residence they should not have been. In an interview with the LondonDailyMail.com, Eric Trump said that because the staff refused to turn off surveillance cameras at the request of the FBI, the Mar-a-Lago cameras captured agents raiding areas they were not authorized to be in. There are 30 agents here, he recalled on Wednesday. They told our lawyer, "You have to leave the property right now, turn off all security cameras." The former president was not on the property as he was in New York City at the time of the search. Eric Trump was the one who, quote, "got the call about the raid." Newsweek has not received information from the FBI, which takes us right back to the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray has sent out a letter reaffirming FBI procedures, insisting that people follow them. Also, because of a shooting today in Cincinnati, which we will report next hour here on the Wells Report, because of a shooting today, and we don't know when this letter went out. There were statements made yesterday from Christopher Wray about how he thought that the death threats, et cetera, that apparently these people have been receiving. And once again, that's an allegation. We don't know that's true or not. But certainly the shooting today in Cincinnati would prove that their concerns were at least justified at some level. Once again, we'll have that next hour here on the Wells Report. And so, one thing is for sure. Regardless of how this goes, this is going to get much uglier than it is now. It's going to get much uglier. Just my opinion now. And I'll be talking more about this coming up in just a couple of moments. This is butt covering. This is butt covering. This is an ill-advised overreach, at least. This is the way it looks now. Once again, there's still something out there. There's still something that could be out there. It could be blockbuster information regarding Donald Trump, but it's beginning to look less and less likely. And this rather uninformative statement by the Attorney General is just another piece of the puzzle that proves that they've got some real problems at the DOJ. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Breaking news today as the pieces are beginning to fall together regarding the Monday raid at Mar-a-Lago. The Attorney General spoke today. We've been covering that like a blanket in this hour. Share this hour with your friends. You are up to date on everything that is known regarding this entire week of action. Pass this along to your friends. So here we are with the Attorney General of the United States not talking about what evidence they collected, which means the evidence that perhaps they were looking for was not there. If the information they were looking for was not there, then they've got a mess on their hands. And this one statement is part and parcel of all of it. I was talking about how I was I was being careful with people's identities and their comments on the chat room. And Kathleen says, by all means, you can say my name because I'd call him a dirtbag to his face, referring to Attorney General Merrick Garland. Mike Renwee says that it was a weak sauce response. It certainly was. It absolutely was. Anhoy Guzman is reporting something that I do not know anything about, replying, no protesters are now allowed to stop in front of Mar-a-Lago. They have to stay in their moving vehicles. Uh-oh. Let's see what else is going on. Please don't make Mike Renwee, please don't make threats against the FBI, DOJ. Don't show up with weapons at the FBI offices around the country. That's a real good way to get killed. I'm not going to explain how I know this. All I can tell you is that he did not get to the inner perimeter around the building. If he had gotten into the inner perimeter with a weapon, unauthorized, he would have been shot. If he'd have made it into the building, he would have been shot. I'm not going to tell you how I know. I just know. Okay? So, Mike Renwee, and we're going to be reinforcing this next hour on the Wells Report, do not do anything crazy under these circumstances. We don't have to. We don't have to do a thing. Right now, even as insane as the United States government seems to be at this moment, there are people that are getting their butts kicked today on Capitol Hill, Washington, and beyond. And those particular circumstances involve the FBI and the DOJ and this gigantic, what appears to be a gigantic mess. Let's see. Cincinnati field office had someone try to enter armed. They fled. They're now in a standoff with state troopers. Just what the Democrats want. Let's see. What else? Someone is putting out the idea that this person who the gunman was in Cincinnati will be killed, and we will never know if he's a Democrat or a Republican player. Let's see. What else? Perfunctory. That's a word I used earlier. Gary says I'm going to have to Google that one. By the way, if you want to know about the words that I use, you can get the collegiate dictionary. Okay, you get the collegiate dictionary. That's the one I use. I was one of those guys that read the dictionary. I love words and I love language. A lot of that was because of my upbringing. My mother was a journalist. My dad was an English major. And I mean, English was a mania in my house. And it's the collegiate dictionary. So you can get one of the perfunctory. It's a great word. Let's see. Merrick Garland did not say anything about the affidavit used to obtain the warrant. I did notice that myself. And I even commented on it. We're going to get the search warrant. We're going to get the inventory list of materials taken from Mar-a-Lago. But nobody said anything about the affidavit that the search warrant was based on. Let's see. Jeff says, what if Trump set this up before he left office so that what documents are found would be beneficial to him? Well, if that's the case, that would explain why nobody's talking about any of them. There you go. Let's see. Let's review. The FBI equals the United States KGB. Can't argue with you. It's a sad, sad day. And that's even being reflected by Christopher Wray, who said this has been a bad week for the FBI in a letter to his employees. What happened to the raid on Clinton with the server? Acid washed because of family emails she didn't want read. Yeah, that's a great question. The deep state goes real deep. It does. Can you feel the spirit of 1770s patriots welling up in your American soul yet? Remember something. Those guys were fighting a worldwide despotic superpower. Okay? In the 1770s, the ability for the British government, the British monarchy, to project power was unmatched. Absolutely unmatched. The government of the United States is not at that level. Okay? If you're an outsider running for president, and win, this is the price you pay. If you're not a career politician, they don't want you around so they can do bad business as usual. Maybe they use the dossier and the same affidavit that went to the FISA court. It could be. They're scared he's going to win again. Absolutely. Hillary's emails were not nearly as important as the insecure server with links to every aspect of this country and no FBI raid. They didn't even take the server. They just doctored the hard drive. Let's see what else. I just rib you for big words. Yeah. I got my clicker out and counted. 88 are listening at ODOT, the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. God bless you all. Thanks very much for joining us. Back with more in a moment. This is the Wells Report. Thanks for joining us. Well, I'll tell you, big day today, huh? Man, oh man. I've seen some screw ups by this guy. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We bring you the news. We analyze the news for fact and bias. I point out each. There is commentary, not news. That is not news, just my opinion. The commentary is not news. How do we balance the commentary? You do. You comments that you are the person that balances the commentary with your debate. Our telephone number for that is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. You can also join us on the chat. It's buzzing today, as you might expect. New York Times is out with this. These are live updates. This was updated 1 minute ago. Live updates. Justice Department moves to unseal the warrant in the Trump search. In a news conference, the New York Times writes, it wasn't a news conference. It was a statement. Words matter. Attorney General Merrick B. Garland briefly described the search for classified documents at former President Donald J. Trump's Florida residence on Monday. Mr. Garland also said he personally approved the decision to seek the warrant. It goes on, this from Glenn Thrush. Attorney General Merrick B. Garland today moved to make public the warrant and supporting documents used in the search of former President Donald J. Trump's residence in Mar-a-Lago. He said he personally proved the decision after, quote, less intrusive, unquote, attempts to receive the documents taken from the White House had failed. In a clipped 2-minute statement to reporters at the department's headquarters, Mr. Garland, who previously declined to comment on the warrant, said he decided to go public with his actions now because President Trump had already confirmed the action. And he said, as was his right, and the surrounding circumstances of the case and the substantial public interest in this matter. Let's see. Trump received a subpoena from the Justice Department ahead of the FBI Mar-a-Lago search. That happened in June. And he complied with it. From what we understand, according to Trump family sources, that was the last interactions that President Trump had with the Department of Justice and the National Archives regarding this. He returned boxes of materials he had taken with him. The New York Times copy says he had improperly taken with him. He didn't improperly take anything. The GSA packed all that stuff up. It was his right to take his materials with him. He returned boxes of materials he had taken with him upon moving out of the White House, according to people familiar with the matter. The existence of the subpoena helps flesh out the sequence of events that had led to the search of Mr. Trump's Florida home by FBI agents seeking classified materials they believed, on the report of an inside informant, might still be there even after efforts by the National Archives and Justice Department ensure that it had been returned. Let's see. This was the full transcript. Let's go with some of the commentary that's going on with this. This 17 minutes ago from Maggie Haberman. President Trump could try to have his lawyers fight the documents being unsealed, but his allies at Judicial Watch, led by Tom Fitton, to whom President Trump listens closely to, has already gone to court to get the warrant unsealed. This from Charles Savage. The application for unsealing lays out the arguments for why the government believes unsealing is appropriate in this case, absent objection from the former president. That means, at a minimum, there's going to have to be some process time for the court to see whether Trump's legal team wants to object. And it's no given that Trump will acquiesce. He's had it in his possession the search warrant itself, since the day of the search, and has chosen not to release it, which I find curious as well. Savage continues. The Justice Department is not asking the judge to unseal the affidavit investigators filed along with their request for the search warrant. That affidavit would explain what they were investigating and what evidence they had assembled to date in support of the idea that they would find more evidence if the search warrant were granted. So even if a judge granted the department request, the public will not see the most important legal document associated with it. This is a problem. That's just my opinion. Alan Feuer said the search warrant and its attachments are unlikely to be sealed immediately. In his motion, the government said it would follow the judge's lead in terms of additional briefing if required. Presumably, President Trump's lawyer could file their own papers contesting the release. So there you go. Now, that takes us back to U.S. Magistrate Judge Bruce Reinhart. Unlike the countless others that the magistrate has signed off on his 4-year judicial career, this one allowing FBI agents to search Mar-a-Lago, the Palm Beach home of former President Donald Trump, ignited a political firestorm. Not just a political firestorm. If this is, as I suspect, a dramatic and completely inappropriate overreach by the FBI and the DOJ, there will be people leaving government service over this. And one of them very well could be the Attorney General himself, Merrick Garland. Unlike countless others that he's done, this one ignited a political firestorm. Major news outlets, including Politico, Fox News, The Independent from London, wrote stories analyzing the Ivy League educated 60-year-old Reinhart's political contributions, his choice of clients, and other aspects of his personal life. Interesting that they don't put out the clients that he represented. Most of the people in the orbit of Jeffrey Epstein. Those are the ones that raised the most eyebrows. Other aspects of his professional life were also reported. Some reporters falsely claimed he was a Trump appointee. No, he was not a Trump appointee. He was absolutely in the Obama camp. In response to Judge Reinhart's or Magistrate Reinhart's newfound notoriety, his biography, listen to this, his biography, contact information were removed from the website of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida. Why? They certainly don't have his personal address there. They don't have his personal phone number there. That's how you get in touch with a U.S. magistrate. In the United States of America, you get to make contact with U.S. magistrates. You do. Whether you'll ever hear anything back, well, that's probably very doubtful. But you can certainly make contact. That is public information. Why would they scrub it from the Southern District of Florida's website? U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida. Let's see. Officials did not respond to an email asking why such unusual steps were taken. The Palm Beach County State Attorney, Dave Ehrenberg, said it was in response to threats that Reinhart had received. Really? What threats? I'd like to see those, please. While issuance of the warrant had been subject to broad speculation and touched off a cascade of angry responses from Trump's allies, few know what was in the document that Reinhart signed, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to see the most important piece, which is the affidavit that triggered the entire affair. We do know it contained details of what the FBI was after. Sources familiar with the matter have since confirmed to USA Today that the investigation is related to allegations that President Trump removed classified documents from the White House when he left office, brought them to his South Florida residence. Neither the Justice Department nor the FBI have commented or released details. Until today, a perfunctory, there's that word again, a perfunctory, very detailed, just bare details being issued today by Merrick Garland. Ehrenberg goes on to say that I hear that Reinhart is getting threats that his information was taken down from the judicial directory and he's the object of vitriol from supporters of the former president. Do not do that. Don't do it. Don't make death threats. Don't show up with weapons. Show up with an American flag and the Constitution. Sing the national anthem. Get back in your car and go home. Anybody, including this guy who apparently tried to shoot up the FBI office in Cincinnati, is working for the left. And that means that there are people out there that are very, very upset and very, very angry about all of this. And yes, as it was brought up earlier in the chat, it does ignite the kind of fervor present in the 1770s among patriots seeking independence from the English crown. That's what Americans are. If you want to know why it is that the United States will never be a socialist country, is because we, the people of the United States, will not allow it. However, you got to be cool. You have to be cool. Anybody who does anything stupid brings a weapon anywhere, crosses a police barrier, makes death threats to government officials, are working to the benefit of what is beginning to look more and more like a totalitarian regime at the head of the United States government. You cannot allow that to happen. When anyone takes those kinds of actions, you must disavow them and criticize them with your strongest, loudest voice. That is essential. Look what happened when 15,000 people went to the Capitol. There are still political prisoners in jail for that. I say it was a peaceful protest because certainly if the, quote, summer of love protests during 2020 were peaceful protests with buildings burning in the background of talking heads standing there assuring us that it was a peaceful protest, then by golly, what happened at the Capitol building was a peaceful protest and nothing more. It was not an insurrection. It was not egged on by the former president. It was simply a peaceful protest. Now, once again, that's my assertion. That is not the news. Those who have worked with Magistrate Reinhardt during the decade he served as a federal prosecutor in West Palm Beach said they are stunned by the misinformation and malice being heard at the magistrate who was simply doing his job. Oh, really? I think it's a total misdirection, said Roger Steffen, who retired in 2020 after spending 32 years as a prosecutor for the South Florida U.S. Attorney's Office. There's no political equation that goes into approving a search warrant. That's what he says. Do you say that? Do you believe that politics didn't have anything to do with this? Okay, I'm going to the opinion camera. Are you kidding? You must be joking. Of all the things that President Donald Trump has uncovered, of all the ugliness and all the swampiness of the United States government, this has got to be the pinnacle. The idea that the Department of Justice and the entire United States justice system would be weaponized for politics is apparent. To quote the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident. It's right there in front of us. You have a guy that is someone who has contributed to President Obama, although he did contribute $500 to Jeb Bush's campaign, which in my mind, told you an awful lot about Jeb Bush's politics. This guy's a full-on leftist. And, oh, by the way, he's a federal magistrate and a full-on leftist. Politics had nothing to do with this, says this guy, Roger Steffen. You got to be kidding me. It may not have had anything to do with him when he retired in 2020, but the worm has turned. There were two reasons for this. One, they had serious problems with Donald Trump and they figured that they could find some evidence. Or it was an overreach, a fishing expedition. It is a mess either way, and we're reporting it on the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. You are perfectly welcome to comment as you see fit today on the statement by Attorney General Merrick Garland, which was short, it was fact-based. There was no assertion of what evidence was collected and what that evidence meant. He said that he had moved to have Federal Magistrate Bruce Reinhardt release the search warrant, to release the inventory list, but not to release the affidavit from this unidentified informant. Mick Mulvaney says there can only be 6 to 8 people close enough to President Trump to be able to swear out that affidavit. I'm betting it was a Secret Service agent, which then adds the Secret Service to the deep state conspirators that we know of already. Ranking officers from the FBI, the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, CIA, and now the Secret Service. Et tu, Brute? This is getting worse every second. It's getting worse every second. And that there wasn't some triumphant discussion of evidence that was seized after they've had 3 days to look at it. The answers are coming. The answers are coming, and they don't look good for the DOJ, the FBI, and anybody else in the United States government. Let's get to some of the chat comments. If we're counting on winning the midterms, says Joe, we better darn well make sure every polling place and so-called drop boxes are secured from these leftists. They may try to cheat again. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's not based on somebody just pulling it out of their hat. That's based on the fact that what we have here is we do not know. The investigations that should have happened immediately after the 2020 election did not happen. Therefore, we don't know. That's where this is coming from. Kathleen says if the FBI was doing everything on the up and up, there was no reason to turn off the security cameras at Mar-a-Lago. Correct. What was heard on cable news, they never turned off the security cameras at the compound. Eric Trump confirmed that today. The FBI did not realize it, and according to the scuttlebutt, now wants the video. All they have to do is get a federal subpoena, and we'll hear about that, I'm sure. Let's see. If they get it, everybody else should see it first. President Trump should have released this search warrant. There are 2 reasons why he didn't. One, there's stuff in there that he doesn't want to share with the American public. That's thing number 1. That's probably going to be taken out of his hands. Or he wants the Department of, he's rubbing his nose in the Department of Justice's face. He's rubbing the Justice Department's face, rubbing their nose in their own stuff. That's what's happening here. Good heavens. Let's see. By the way, President Trump would not have the entire search warrant, only the first page of the actual order and the receipt of the property seized. This is somebody who would know these things. All I can tell you is that that's probably what they're going to release. The very stuff that President Trump got. Wouldn't surprise me a bit, especially if this is the screw-up that I think it is. See what else. The Kremlin claimed, okay, that was an attack on an airstrip that the Russians were in possession of. Our Supreme Court were threatened. Homes protested. Nothing was done. But Bruce Reinhardt now has a security detail, and people are told to stay away from his house. Let's see what else is going on. Yeah. That's what we have. Okay. So there was a shooting at the Cincinnati office of the FBI. Don't do that. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Been doing a little bit of background investigation. From the New York Post yesterday, former President Donald Trump reportedly has no plans to publish the search warrant used on the raid at Mar-a-Lago, as the judge who approved the search considers a motion to unseal the document. He got his marching orders today from the Attorney General. The Justice Department has said little publicly about the unprecedented raid on a former president, which is believed to be part of an effort to receive presidential records that may contain classified information. President Trump blasted the raid as a partisan surprise attack and political targeting at the highest level. And nobody's saying a word. White House isn't saying a word. Attorney General Garland said a few words, but very, very few. Christopher Wray headed to the Adirondacks as quickly as he could get on an airplane. He said he had to hightail it. Now we know why he used that term. This is a mess. NBC News has quoted a source to President Trump as saying, no, we're not releasing a copy of the warrant. Okay, so there's that. Earlier today, Fox News was reporting that Christopher Wray sent a letter to the FBI employees, the rank and file, and said, stick to your procedures, follow the rules, and that he was going to work on security for all FBI employees. Now, also yesterday, this was reported, in case you're wondering. This was reported yesterday. FBI Director Christopher Wray pushed back on social media threats made against him and other law enforcement officers following his agency's unprecedented search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. You need to listen to this. On Monday, the FBI executed a raid. Messages called for, by the way. Droves of social media posts criticized the incident, accused the Bureau of playing politics. Messages also called for violence toward Wray, a massive uprising, and even a civil war. Quote, I'm deeply concerned about threats to law enforcement, said Wray. Violence against law enforcement is not the answer, no matter who you're upset with. I hope those words, by the way, leave Christopher Wray's mouth and are immediately heard by leftist politicians who keep egging on violence across the country, especially against police officers. Another one is fighting for her life today. Christopher Wray then called the threats, quote, deplorable and dangerous, unquote. What do we learn from that statement? We learn that Christopher Wray is not too smart. Following the now famous, or rather infamous, use of the word deplorables by Hillary Clinton, using that word was really dumb. Just my opinion, but seriously, Christopher Wray is not a smart man, okay? Or he's not thinking. He's just not thinking clearly. Now, that may be because he's not real good at politics. And I think we can probably surmise that based on his testimony of a couple of days ago before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now, that speaks highly of him, at least higher of him, that he doesn't really play the political game. But there are times when anybody should avoid the use of words that were highly inflammatory to 74 million Americans. Really? Really, Director Wray? I wouldn't be surprised if he also resigned and got back to the Adirondacks just as quickly as his hightail could get him out there. I believe that this might be something that chases Attorney General Merrick Garland right out of government service. If this gets any worse, how could he stay? So anyway, the remarks were made at a news conference at the agency's field office in Omaha, Nebraska, where Wray provided comments about the FBI's focus on cybersecurity. So he says that he's very concerned about threats to law enforcement. Violence against law enforcement is not the answer, no matter who you're upset with, unless, of course, you're a leftist politician who wants to defund the police. Now, wants to run away from defunding the police after crime pegged at an outrageous level and still is from one end of the country to the other. Again, not really a smart man. And after he makes that statement today, and I have to say this, so back to the opinion camera, as if right on cue, just my opinion, an armed man in body armor is now contained after trying to break into the FBI's Cincinnati office today. The suspect was injured in an exchange of gunfire with law enforcement. As of mid-afternoon, a standoff started with the suspect fled. After the suspect fled, is still ongoing. We have not heard that that's been resolved yet. To say that he is contained, well, yes, he's probably contained himself, and that therein is the standoff. The man attempted to breach the visitor screening facility at around 9 a.m. at the Bureau's field office in Cincinnati, according to the FBI. An alarm went off and special agents responded. The suspect fled north onto Interstate 71. The suspect was armed with a nail gun and an AR-15, according to law enforcement sources. Ohio State Highway Patrol officers have pursued the suspect, who was wearing body armor and a gray shirt, as he fled in a Crown Victoria. This, according to Thomas Breckel, director of the Clinton County Emergency Management Agencies. Officers traded gunfire with the suspect as he drove away. The suspect is contained now, as law enforcement officers report, but had not yet been taken into custody. Parts of the interstate were shut down during the standoff with police, so he may be on the actual freeway itself. Clinton Emergency Management issued a lockdown for all buildings within a 1-mile radius of the area, instructed residents and business owners to lock their doors and remain inside. And yes, they bring this up in USA Today, whose copy we're using. The incident came a day after the FBI director warned against threats circulating online against agents in the Justice Department in the wake of the agency's search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. My fellow citizens, I wrote this on Facebook days ago. I'm going to reiterate it. No violence. No crossing of police barriers. No brandishing of weapons. All you need to do, your weapons right now, are an American flag, the Constitution of the United States, and your voice singing the national anthem. That's all you need. The strength of the response that we should be given is in numbers. If you have a chance of showing up at, say, some demonstration on behalf of former President Donald Trump, by all means do so. No weapons. None of any kind. American flag, pocket Constitution, national anthem. That's it. Anybody who violates that doctrine is working for the left. I'm pretty sure that what we're going to find out is that this is a disaffected right-wing extremist, a white guy, who has probably a whole bunch of very inflammatory Facebook posts and so on and so on. Well, everybody who voted for Donald Trump is a right-wing extremist. Everybody who voted for Donald Trump is a raging bigot. They've told us that. Everybody who voted for Donald Trump is a deplorable who clings to his Bible and his guns. But I find it, and this is just, again, this is a speculation on my part, probably not even positive. Isn't it fascinating that Christopher Wray makes that statement and then a guy shows up to shoot at the Cincinnati field office? Isn't that interesting? The answer is yeah, but not for the reasons you might think. This is ugly. Ugly. That was USA Today's coverage. This is from Fox News. An armed suspect who tried to breach a secure area of the FBI field office in Ohio, Cincinnati specifically, led police on a chase, exchanged gunfire with the officers, and has unknown injuries. Multiple federal, state law enforcement agencies are on the scene where a standoff with the suspect is underway. This, according to the Ohio State Highway Patrol. So here we go. This from the Ohio State Highway Patrol. These are tweets. The suspect's vehicles came to a stop. The suspect's vehicle came to a stop approximately 9:53 a.m. on Smith Road near Van Trees Road in Clinton County. The suspect exited the vehicle, engaged officers where gunfire was exchanged. They go on to tweet, the suspect has unknown injuries and no officers or bystanders were injured. The incident remains a standoff situation at this time with numerous federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies on scene. I'm going to do a quick update on this article. And let's see. I don't think anything has changed. Ohio State Highway Patrol said it responded to Interstate 71 in an attempt to locate the armed suspect who fled from the FBI Cincinnati field office. At approximately 9 a.m., an armed subject attempted to breach the visitor screening facility at FBI Cincinnati, according to a tweet from the FBI Cincinnati account. Unconfirmed information shared internally among agents suggested the suspect possibly brandished a nail gun and an AR-15 style rifle. Troopers located the suspect's vehicle, a Ford Crown Victoria, near the northbound Interstate 71 rest area in Warren County. Law enforcement pursued. The suspect traveled 60 miles northwest before the pursuit ended at I-71 and Highway 73. State Highway Patrol said shots were fired from within the suspect's vehicle. The pursuit continued on Interstate 71 until the suspect exited State Route 73, traveling eastbound before turning onto Smith Road. The suspect's vehicle came to a stop at 9:53 a.m. on Smith Road near Van Trees Road in Clinton County. This is according to the Ohio State Highway Patrol. The suspect exited the vehicle and exchanged gunfire with officers. No idea where he is holed up at this particular moment. It was not immediately clear if the suspect had been injured. Ohio State Highway Patrol says he was. The incident remains a standoff situation at this time. Fox News Digital reached out to FBI Cincinnati for more information. An FBI spokesperson said by phone they did not immediately have any comment. In an email to Fox News Digital, Ohio State Highway Patrol later confirmed it is currently investigating an active incident near Interstate 71 and Route 73. The FBI, Ohio State Highway Patrol, and local law enforcement partners are on the scene near Wilmington, Ohio, trying to resolve this critical incident. So that's the very latest on that. Now, this from Fox News. FBI agents, as well as U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, FBI Director Chris Wray, are experiencing an uptick in death threats in the wake of the raid at former President Donald Trump's residence in Mar-a-Lago. Authorities monitoring social media posts are spotting a significant increase in death threats aimed towards agents, agents, Wray and Garland said. These threats are reported to continue at a steady pace online. The FBI DOJ security procedures are not made public. Both Garland and Wray travel with an armed security detail. Still, Fox News is told there are discussions to potentially increase their security. That's only because they're not Supreme Court justices, huh? Meanwhile, members of the federal law enforcement community across the country are beginning to grow privately frustrated with the chief law enforcement officer of the country, Garland. Okay, here it goes. The Attorney General has remained silent since the search of the former president's Florida home. There's been more frustration with Garland than Wray, according to sources. You could see some of that frustration when Christopher Wray was at that press conference where he was talking about cybersecurity. Somebody asked him about the raid, and he shook his head, and he sort of waved his hands like that and said, "You got to talk to the Department of Justice." Jeez. I've been trying to figure out what would be worse. Since this whole thing happened, and I came up with these two scenarios. One, they had the goods on President Trump. Two, this was an epic screw up by the Department of Justice and the FBI. I was trying to figure out which was worse. From a political standpoint, the idea that they would have something major on President Trump that they would go after, that would be terrible. But what is really heart-stopping, blood running cold bad, is the fact that the FBI and the Department of Justice would make a mistake of this magnitude. That the idea that they would trail their coats in front of the United States, exposing the fact that under those coats was treachery, should stop you in your tracks. Which gets me back to any kind of really stupid demonstration. Stop yourself in your tracks. Stop. No weapons. I know it's constitutionally illegal. I understand. I know it's the Second Amendment. I got it. Don't show up with them anyway. You will be in service of people who want to turn this into a socialist totalitarian government. Just allow these people to expose themselves. When they're screwing up, don't interrupt them. This is the Wells Report. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Taking a look at the chat room today. Somebody said that he believed that the January 6th attack was perpetrated mostly by Antifa. Whoever it was that broke down those barriers and started beating up cops, set up a socialist totalitarian government to do the evil work that we've seen since. There were 15,000 people there. 800 of them screwed up. At least they got arrested. There are several of them that are currently in solitary confinement still in Washington, D.C. They are political prisoners. We cannot repeat that mistake. Don't repeat that mistake. Be cool. We have an opportunity in 89 days to send an unequivocal message to these people. Only you know what that message ought to be, okay? That's only you. Only you know. Let's see. Someone said I would have crossed barriers Monday, but the cool end around is in process. Yeah. Don't cross police barriers. Don't show up with weapons of any kind. You need an American flag and the Constitution, your singing voice, and numbers. Make no mistake, I'm not telling you to sit this one out. Not at all. If you hear about a protest, if you can be peaceful, show up. That's how we communicate with these people. That's how we communicate with them. And it's not easy. It's not easy to communicate with these people, especially when they simply refuse to hear what you have to say. I make it abundantly clear that this government is only serving itself. And that's the problem. It should serve we the people. And if you do not have someone that you plan to vote for, the strict assurance from that person that they're going to operate on your behalf instead of their own, don't vote for them. Likewise, if you have voted for somebody that's got an incredible track record of ignoring you, don't vote for them. Don't do it. I don't care what political party it is. This government is trying to steal this country from us. There are agents who are trying to do that, in fact. One of them proved that he wasn't fit to, I don't know, govern a family reunion, let alone the office he's chasing. We'll get to that coming up in just a couple of moments. One of my dear friends, who is on the other political side, I say that. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm a conservative. I'm not a Republican. Arthur's a Democrat. He says people need to wait for information. Unfortunately, some are motivated to violent action by conspiracy groups before they actually know the facts. That's the tail wagging the dog. And we know it doesn't work. January 6th has been turned into this gigantic political melodrama because people didn't keep their heads straight. Let's see. What else? This entire week is reading like a badly written book. Truer words never spoken. This, by the way, from the chat room that you can join as you see fit. See what else? Yeah, it's a bad science fiction show. Yeah. Somebody else said they're trying to steal this country before the next election. Yeah. And some idiot showing up trying to shoot up an FBI headquarters is giving them, pardon the pun, the ammunition to move forward with draconian security measures. See, what we've done here by being good stewards of the country given us by the greatest political minds in human history is we're giving these people enough rope to hang themselves. And they're doing it. I said this earlier. I want to say it again. Don't do something stupid, because when your opponents are screwing up like Renaissance art, don't interrupt them. Do not interrupt them. These people are taking themselves out. In the House of Representatives, through the primary season, this nation is on track to diselect more incumbent House of Representatives members than any time in American history. Even during the Reagan Revolution, which I thought was eye-watering. You mean to tell me that more House of Representatives members could lose their jobs this election than has ever happened before? Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. there are times when you have to follow Thomas Jefferson's sage advice. A little revolution every now and then is a good thing. This is not the time. All those people talking about civil war, stop. We don't need a civil war. We need true elections. We need brilliant decision making in the voting booth. And we've got a chance in 89 days. We cannot blow it. This is the Wells Report. Okay, back with more in just a couple of seconds, all right? Thanks very much for being with us today. Hour number 3 is next. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. We report the news. We analyze the news for fact and bias. I make commentary. That's not the news. I differentiate between news and commentary. That's what separates the Wells Report from every other show like this that you see. I am not the Oracle of Delphi. I'm your neighbor. My profession allows me to go through the news, like 20, 25 news sources every day, and bring you the stories of the day. And yes, I make commentary, but that's not the news. I differentiate between my opinion and the news. That's what commentary is. It's simply my opinion, just as valuable as yours. Which brings us to the last part of the Wells Report, which is debate. Debate. Debate is essential because that's the check and balance on the commentary and the news reporting. Comment on the news. Tell me I'm foolish. F-U-L-L-I-S-H. That, by the way, is not in the Webster's Collegiate Dictionary. That's a word that I have created. It has various other cousins. If you think I'm foolish, F-U-L-L-I-S-H, tell me why. And by the way, if I get something wrong, put it out there because I've got computers all over this place. I'll chase down the answers and we'll find them together. We're going to have more truth at the end of this broadcast than we do at the beginning. It's been a very, very busy news day. Merrick Garland finally addressed the nation. And it wasn't good. Wasn't good. Everything that I've seen from the leadership of the Department of Justice, from the FBI, from the White House, all leads to one almost, which is becoming an even more inextricable conclusion, that this was a massive screw up. Who's by the way is kicking these people's butts? Because there are obviously butts being kicked. Who's doing it? I guess I'll have to jump into that right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this. Butts are being kicked. It's happening in the background. But who's doing the butt kicking? Right now, what I would say is whoever is running the Biden administration, that group of people that I refer to as the presidium, the real decision makers in the Biden administration, because it sure as hell isn't Joe Biden. They're telling people to stop. They're telling people to stop. And they should. They should. Whoever these people are, they are stomping on people as we speak. I suspect, and once again, this is opinion, I suspect that what they're doing is they're saying, okay, yes, we want to control the public. Yes, we want to control their speech. Yes, we want to control their ability to defend themselves. Yes, we want to do all of that kind of stuff, but you cannot make a populist president who was running for his first political office and was elected president of the United States, not by Republicans, not by Democrats, but by Americans. You can't make him into a martyr, and that's exactly what you're doing. So flipping stop. You know, I continue to be roundly critical of all these politicians that have been working to do their absolute dead level best to destroy President Donald Trump in any way they can. I was incredibly critical about impeachment 1. I was incredibly critical of the second impeachment. I was critical of the Mueller report. I was critical of all of this lynch mob work that was dutifully lubricated by the mainstream media. You know, there were people that won Pulitzer Prizes, the highest awards for journalism in the United States of America. They won Pulitzer Prizes for reporting on wrong information. I suppose in a vacuum you could say, well, we didn't know it was wrong information. Yeah, you did. And certainly the people that were leading you into that, using the mainstream media as useful idiots, which is exactly what they are, those people knew exactly what was going on. Van Jones. Remember Van Jones? He was an Obama era guy. You know, he was looking at this Russian collusion thing. He said in public, and it was reported in the news, that Russian collusion is a nothing burger. That happened years ago. He said it was a nothing burger. What are you doing? And look at all the garbage that has happened since then. Donald Trump has done something that no other American has ever done. He has exposed groups of people who are working for the demise of this nation as we know it. And he's still doing it. He is still doing it. Like I say, nothing in the universe is without balance. I felt genuine anxiety when I saw that raid on Mar-a-Lago. I got genuine anxiety over it. I alluded yesterday that I hadn't felt that way since the country was coming apart at the seams during 1968 when I was 10. And so when I look at all of this and I see all this, I was extremely, extremely upset. Anxiety over the future of our nation and where this would go. Well, where it's going is right into the trash heap. At least that's the way it looks right now. Something could turn it around, but I don't know what it would be. And so here we are, watching this come apart at the seams. And the universal balance is maybe they'll stop now. Maybe they will stop. Maybe what they'll say is, we're going to have to beat this guy at the ballot box. How are you going to do it? Two ways. One, you can tell a better story to the American people than you've been telling since President Obama took office. Or you can cheat. Either of those are in play. Just my opinion, just my analysis. But what I would suspect is there's a real possibility that this is going to end this unbelievable, ill-advised, badly executed witch hunt against a man who was elected president of the United States by we the people, just like the Constitution said we should. I said time and time again, every slap they took at President Trump was a slap at you. The people who voted for him. The people who believe in these United States as the greatest nation on earth. Reinforced by people who say, all these ultra mega people, these mega extremists. It's almost like they forgot what MAGA actually stands for. Make America Great Again. They don't want to make America great again. They want to make America their personal plaything. Their political delirium executor. That's what they want to do. They want to use our money to bring about their, what I consider to be, sick view of what the United States should be. Not the United States of America, the United Socialist States of America. It's awful. We must act, but not stupidly. We got a great lesson on how these people operate when we saw them encircle themselves with razor wire, and 26,000 troops with real weapons of war pointed at us, we the people, protecting themselves from the people of the United States. Are these people totalitarians? Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are. They're following every totalitarian path in the world. They close themselves off in security barriers. And troops with weapons and orders to defend the capital of the United States. From who? From who? From a bunch of thugs that wanted to beat up cops? Yeah, I would suppose that the National Guard that was called out to protect the Capitol building after January 6th, when they should have been called out before January 6th, but Nancy Pelosi just didn't like the optics. And then she took advantage of it, didn't she? Why? Because the people at the Capitol made a huge mistake. There were barriers up. Police officers, Capitol Police, on video, opening the barriers, inviting us to our own demise. And we took that invitation. We can't do that anymore. We can't. It's not time. If this persists, I can't say that there won't be a time. But we're not going to have to guess. We're going to know. We're going to know. We're going to know when it's time to take more than just elective action. And that's been said by America's political leaders in the past. We'll know. We're not there yet. Not by a long shot. These people keep screwing up these elections. They keep casting aspersions on whether or not we're getting a true vote. That happens a few more times. We'll know. We're not there yet. We're not there. But if these people have half a brain, what they have just done is they have sabotaged their lynching of Donald J. Trump, and they had better stop. This collision of good sense and what is America that they're coming out on the back end of, the bad end of, needs to stop. If you're going to beat President Trump, you're going to have to do it at the ballot box. And that means you're going to have to come up with better things than the Green New Deal. You're going to have to come up with better things than oh my God, they are terrible. We simply can't give the Republicans a chance to run the government. Oh yeah, why? Well, because they'll run not the democracy off the road. The Republicans would, theoretically. Not that I have any trust that they could do anything. No, what they're going to do is they're going to damage democracy, which is different than democracy. Democrat Party owns the socialist mantle. They're happy about it. Well, we're not going to let them have it. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. This is hour number 3. We've had 2 podcasts already. If you missed them, you need to go see them. You need to go see them. Not only do you need to see them, you need to share them with your friends. Is it because I'm just great and fantastic? No. It's because there was an awful lot of real information about our nation and what's going on with the Federal Department of Justice and the FBI. And all the decision making that led to an ill-advised raid on Mar-a-Lago. And the Attorney General's response to it today. Go see those. If you like this broadcast, share it with your friends. We're trying to build something here. Let's build it together. So, during the break, Langston, who is a Democrat, took issue with me saying that his party keeps making fun of MAGA. He keeps saying these MAGA extremists. There's another name for MAGA extremists. Americans. Make America great again. They keep arguing against MAGA. They don't want to make America great again. They think it's some sort of a lightning rod for extremism in the United States. All the while, they're trying to walk away from quadrillions of dollars of national wealth in the form of fuels given to us by Mother Nature and trying to turn this country into a socialist politician's paradise. That's not making America great again. But anyway, this Democrat says, when was America not great? It wasn't great on Monday. America wasn't great on Monday. America isn't great when people in the mainstream media and in politics call half the nation racists. They keep trying to point at the people of the United States, at least half of us, as seething racists. They don't see America as great. We're not racists. They keep trying to say that the United States was a slave country built on slavery, and they came up with something called the 1619 Project. The only problem with that is the government of the United States in general, didn't exist until July 4th, 1776. A century and a half later. If they had problems with what happened in 1619, they need to go see the Dutch and the English and the French and the Spanish, because they owned this North American continent then. The United States of America didn't exist. On July 4th, 1776, they read the Declaration of Independence that said that all men were created equal. There was no racism there. They could have just as easily said all white men were created equal, but they didn't, did they? Were there slaves? Yes. There are slaves now. But not in the United States of America, certainly not with some kind of legal pretext. We killed off slavery in less than 90 years in this nation. Racism took longer. We killed that off in the 60s. We consolidated that defeat of racism in the 70s and 80s and the 90s. And racism didn't become a political lever until President Obama was elected. Then it was Katie bar the door. And now with critical race theory, trying to teach white people that they are oppressors and teach anybody else that they are oppressed. They're trying to create a new generation of racism, which in itself is racist. These are the same people that complain about institutional racism in the United States. And that's what they're teaching our kids. If that's not institutional racism, what in the hell is it? There's other news. We're going to get to that next. You're listening to the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. There is other news. We were talking about the leftist, socialist, crazy people that want to destroy the United States. One of them is running to be the governor of Texas. Why do I say he's trying to destroy the United States? He hates free speech. He hates the Second Amendment. He hates the Fourth Amendment. He hates the Bill of Rights. He cannot be pro-American if he hates the Bill of Rights. And he wants to be the governor of Texas. I'm discussing Democrat politician Robert Francis O'Rourke. Regardless of what the happy fairy tale around him is, he's not Hispanic. He's a tall, skinny Irish kid from El Paso who happens to speak Spanish. He's not Hispanic. He's an anti-American thug based on his own rhetoric. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15. Hell yes, we're going to take your AK-47. Oh, yeah? Well, here in Texas, and he should know this because he was raised here, come and take it. Come and take it. Bring a lunch. This guy who wants to be the governor of Texas snapped yesterday at a heckler who laughed while he was discussing the Uvalde, Texas mass shooting at a town hall in Mineral Wells, Texas. I love Mineral Wells, by the way. It was founded by my father in the oil, by one of my great uncles in the oil business. Mineral Wells. That's his name, Mineral. Yeah. So he was there in Mineral Wells, Texas. During the speech at the town hall, O'Rourke expressed outrage over the gunman who opened fire in Uvalde, Texas, and killed 19 children and 2 adults in May. We can all agree on that. That was awful. It was terrible. And then he described the weapon that the 18-year-old gunman used as being, quote, originally designed for use on the battlefields in Vietnam to penetrate an enemy soldier's helmet at 500 feet and knock him down dead, unquote. Okay, well, in point of fact, because he knows absolutely nothing about what he's talking about, the M16 was designed to kill someone at 300 yards. Okay? And no helmet. Not the ones used in Vietnam, not the one used against American troops in Vietnam, can stop a bullet fired by a rifle. In fact, the ones we have now made of Kevlar, kind of iffy. Kind of iffy that they'll stop a bullet. You simply can't wear a helmet big enough and heavy enough to be able to stop from being penetrated by a battle rifle, and as soon as they come up with one, they'll come up with a different battle rifle. They're currently trying to get the 6.8 SPC approved. I hope that doesn't happen. That is a horrifying round. Anyway, as he was describing in error what an M16 was capable of, by the way, it's 300 yards, 300 meters. While he was talking about this, he imitated a warfighter by dropping to one knee and extending his arm as if he was lining up for a shot. A member of the crowd, sensing the melodrama and stupidity, began to laugh. And then O'Rourke proved that he does not have the required capability to be the governor of anything, including a family reunion picnic. He promptly turned around, confronted the person, and said, quote, it may be funny to you, MFer, but it's not funny to me. This guy wants to be the governor of Texas. This boy can't even govern his own mouth. He used the word MFer in mixed company. The confrontation garnered O'Rourke a round of applause from the crowd. Why? Because the crowd is comprised of useful idiots for a guy who has nothing to say about America that is good. Nothing to say about the Constitution that is good. Nothing to say about the Bill of Rights that is good. Here's another tall, skinny white guy trying to talk about how terrible white guys are. And nobody's called him on it yet. But this melodramatic pretending to take a shot with a rifle, what was that all about? I'll tell you what it was about. He's a bad actor. He's pretending that he's going to be the governor of Texas. No chance. He's a boy, barely in men's clothing. He can't govern in his mouth. He's not going to be able to govern Texas. Simply not. O'Rourke, a longtime proponent of striking down the Second Amendment, is set to face off as the Democrat nominee against Republican Governor Greg Abbott in the November Texas gubernatorial election. He's going to get crushed again. Again. Why? Because he's an anti-American, leftist, socialist thug. That's why. The people of Texas, and that includes the handful of personality cult members that were hanging around him, that in Mineral Wells, Texas, those are going to be the only people that vote for the guy. He's awful. So they say in this article in USA Today that they really don't know why the guy laughed. I'll tell you why he laughed. Because it was flippin' stupid. It was a dumb, overdramatic crock of crap. Or a crockish. Crockish. Remember the cousins of the word foolish? If you think I'm foolish, by the way, you can, by all means, call me on the telephone, 817-379-2172. And you can tell me I'm foolish. It's okay. Just govern your mouth like Beto O'Rourke can't do. Okay? He's trying to blame Governor Abbott for the shooting at the Uvalde Elementary School. That's not the problem. That's not the problem. The problem at Uvalde was that a guy with a gun could get in. Why is that? Well, because we refuse to secure our kids' schools. That's why. Is that on Governor Abbott? Maybe. But he's not talking about that. He's not blaming Governor Abbott for failing to secure Texas schools. He's not blaming him for that. He's blaming guns. He's blaming the Second Amendment. This is on you. Until you choose to do something different, this will continue to happen. Somebody needs to stand up for the children of the state, or they'll continue to be killed just like they were killed in Uvalde. You know what I'd like to do? 1, make the schools safe so they can't be killed in elementary school. That's thing number 1. Thing number 2, I want to stand up for the kids to not be sexually programmed or groomed for LGBTQ members of our community, and for leftist crazy people that want to essentially destroy a generation of children. If you're going to stand up for kids, Beto, Robert Francis O'Rourke, tall, skinny Irish kid from El Paso, if you want to stand up for kids, get the garbage in their curriculum out. And he can't do that. He can't do that. He's going to go up against Greg Abbott, who's done a brilliant job as governor of the state of Texas. Is he perfect? No. No. Should he have made the schools safe, regardless of what the federal government said? Yes. Yes, he should have. But that's not what Beto's arguing about. If you want to do something, what you have to do is you have to have a message that actually works. This guy's not equipped. This guy's not equipped. And he doesn't say how he's going to do it. Nothing more serious to me than getting justice for the families of Uvalde and stopping this from ever happening again. Okay. Make the schools safe. But that's not what you're talking about, is it? So there's that. While we're on the subject of unbalanced politicians, let's talk about Liz Cheney. Embattled Republican Representative Liz Cheney, in her closing message to Wyoming voters ahead of the state's Tuesday primary, once again spotlighted her mission to make sure that former President Donald Trump never returns to the White House. That's her mission. Excuse me, Ms. Cheney. Shouldn't your mission be representing the voters of Wyoming? The answer is yes, except for you. Your answer is that she is going to work to make sure that former President Donald Trump never returns to the White House. That's not what the people of Wyoming elected you to do. They elected you. They elected you to represent them. You're only representing yourself. And therefore, you are not qualified to be a continuing member of the House of Representatives. You are turning yourself into the poster girl for Trump derangement syndrome. You see, this is something that I've said a couple of times, and I don't know that you actually got what I was saying. But when you don't have a story to tell, when you don't have an issue to run on, you vilify your opponent. That's what's wrong with American politics. Because when you vilify your opponent, your buddies in the media, then they start vilifying your opponent. And before you know it, the guy who's running against you on the issues, he's destroyed. He's ruined. They're trying to do it with Donald Trump. Can you imagine anybody else you've ever seen in politics withstand the fusillade of lynch mob tactics that Donald Trump has withstood and actually defeated at every turn? Can you imagine anybody else that would do that? Who do you think might be able to do that? Beto O'Rourke? He can't even control his mouth. You got to be kidding me. That boy is not fit to be the governor of Texas. The governor of Texas is man's work. You got to be a man. You're disqualified, Beto. And if you're going to go to the House of Representatives, you need to represent not what you believe, but what your voters believe. If you can't do that, you don't understand what a representative democracy is. You don't know what a republic is. How can you call yourself a Republican when you don't know what a republic is? Bye, Liz. Go ahead, by all means. Work to defeat Donald Trump. But you had better come up with a better story than you've been telling in the January 6th Commission. You better have something a lot better than that, or it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. You don't have an issue, so you're vilifying your opponent. You don't have a story to tell. You vilify your opponent. There was nothing more sad than seeing the shell of Dick Cheney trying to talk about how Donald Trump was the biggest threat to America since what? The biggest threat against America is China, not Donald Trump. The biggest threat to America is Islamic extremism. The biggest threat to America is a resurgent Russia. The biggest threat to America is socialist politicians pretending they're Democrats. It's not Donald Trump. Now, if Dick Cheney had said he's a threat to democracy, absolutely. Donald Trump is a threat to the current Democrat Party, which is why they're working so hard to defeat him. Well, they overreached this time. They made a mistake this time. There are people who argue that they handed Donald Trump the Republican nomination for president. They may just have. But what they certainly did was they certainly reinvigorated 74 million people who voted for him last time and who very likely will vote for him again this time. They've shot themselves in the foot, pardon the pun. Supreme Court of the United States is going to hear a case I'm going to tell you about next. Let's see, what else do I have? What else do I have that I haven't been able to get to because I've been stuck on everything else? Let's see. Let me keep going here, see if there's something. Oh, the economy, jobless claims. Producer price index rose to 9.8%. Remember when I told you that inflation was going to be in double digits soon? Yeah. The zero inflation, you mean a zero increase in inflation between July to July? That's not zero inflation. It's still 8.6%, 8.5%. Price is 8.5% higher than they were last year. What are you guys talking about? Do you know? And there's more. We'll talk about that in just a couple of seconds. This is the Wells Report. You are listening to the Wells Report. Let me get through a whole bunch of news that I have not been able to talk about today, but you are going to hear about tonight if you watch news. The U.S. Supreme Court announced it's going to hear one of two cases October 31st that could dismantle affirmative action based on race in university admissions. Universities are now urging the court to preserve the decision, despite some expert opinion to the contrary. Students for Fair Admissions versus President and Fellows of Harvard College is one of two cases to come before the Supreme Court, urging it to eliminate race as an admissions factor, and as a result overturn the precedent case Grutter versus Bollinger. The case also seeks to answer whether Harvard College violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act through its alleged discrimination against Asian American students. That stemmed from the initial lawsuit. Yeah. That's that That's that institutional racism we've heard so much about, right there smack dab in the middle of the Ivy League. Isn't that incredible? Yeah. It's very clear to me that Harvard University was engaged in blatant discrimination, and what they were doing was they did not like the fact that Asian Americans, if they were simply admitted based on their credentials, qualifications, would have such a huge percentage of the student body, said Hans von Spakovsky, the senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's what we call anti-Asian racism. That's all there is to it. Let's talk a little bit about the economy. U.S. suppliers raised prices in July. And they say, and this is the Wall Street Journal, at the slowest pace since last fall. They raised prices. Wholesale price index is up to 9.8%. Those are wholesale prices. What are the prices going to do in the retail world? They're going to go up too. Yeah. The producer price index generally reflects supply conditions in the economy, increased by 9.8%. The producer prices climbed 11.3% in June from a year earlier. Inflation is not far behind. Double-digit inflation by the end of the year. There's no doubt about it. By the way, this inflation is finally catching up with workers. U.S. workers' filings for unemployment benefits edged up last week, reaching their highest levels so far this year. Initial jobless claims, a proxy for layoffs, increased to a seasonally adjusted 262,000 from a revised 248,000 the previous week. This is according to the Labor Department talking Thursday. The weekly number has been on an upward trend. Listen to this. The weekly number has been on an upward trend since reaching a 50-year low in March. It's inflation. The people that put people to work can't afford to put people to work, and they're laying them off. Meanwhile, home prices continued to climb across nearly all the U.S. in the second quarter when buyer demand started to fade due to higher mortgage rates, but still exceeding the housing market's unusually low supply. Yeah, so housing prices are going up. It's true. By the way, in case you're wondering, it's because mortgage rates are going up, because interest rates are going up. Yeah, so you see what's happening is that this is the beginning of the recession. I mean, the real one. Not the incidental one. This is the real one. You see, these prices, these interest rates are designed to slow down the economy. And that's what they're doing. Yeah, housing prices are up, but nobody can afford a mortgage. Nobody in their right mind would try. And so what's going to happen? Housing prices are eventually going to start to go down. That's what's happening next. Abso-flippin'-lutely. There is, however, some good news. Gasoline prices. Drivers are feeling relief when the national average fell below $4 a gallon for the first time in 5 months. I'm still paying more than $100 to fill my tank. Sorry. I'm still paying $100 to fill my tank. The average cost of a gallon regular gasoline in the U.S. is $3.99. That's according to AAA. That's still more than last year's price of $3.18. It's a major drop from when prices peaked at $5.01 in mid-June. Why did the prices come down? Is it because of President Biden's fancy economy handling? No. It came down because people stop driving as much, and people don't have as much money to actually go and burn gasoline. So they're not doing it. Meanwhile, the supply is continuing, and because of the laws of supply and demand, something that the left has absolutely no understanding of, especially AOC, and nobody can figure that out. I can't figure that out. She graduated from Boston College with a degree in economics. She doesn't get it. Okay? So supply goes up, and there are fewer people buying gas, and the price comes down. So that's the way that works. It's called supply and demand. Demand is low, prices will follow. But It's better than $5 a gallon for gas. Still almost $1 more expensive than it was last year. And immeasurably higher than when President Trump was the president and we were energy independent. That's something else about that supply and demand thing. Yeah. Something about the supply and demand thing. You see when the United States started exporting oil, the world price dropped. We should do that again. Wouldn't you like to see that happen? Me too. Not with this president. This has been the Wells Report. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. All right, guys. Listen, thanks very much. I hope you like that show. And I hope what you do is you share it with your friends. That was a good one today. I hope you enjoyed it. Okay. Let's see. As I get finished here, crappy workers everywhere. Shores. Yeah, the show's over already. You know what's really interesting about this broadcast than was different when I was doing radio? The show goes a lot faster for me. That second hour evaporates. All right. Good night, everybody. God bless all y'all. Take good care. Be safe. Make